Greetings from Amsterdam, TBLI Radical Truth. Our guest today is Ellen Hensbergen, the Managing Director of Invesdor in the Benelux. And I'm really happy because she is an expert in mobilizing capital for impact founders and entrepreneurs. Ellen, for those that are not familiar with you, Invesdor, crowdfunding, tell us a bit about who you are, your big purpose, your journey that led you here, because from what I saw, you were more active in traditional finance and real estate. So take all the time that you want, and thank you so much for doing this.
Yes, pleasure is all mine. Yes, let's start. Maybe just to start first with Investor, because I think that is where I'm working now and I have a lot of fun. And it is definitely one of my big purposes to make this company even bigger and help more entrepreneurs and investors to make this world a little bit better, because I think we can use that at the moment. Just to start with Investor. Investor is a pan-European investment platform, and our investors are mostly private investors. That means that they are already, it is already possible for them to invest from an amount of 250 euros. So we try to make it as accessible as possible for a large crowd. And we invest in impact companies. We do as well equity financing as bond financing, or to make it a little bit easier, loan financing. And it means Investor, we are located in Berlin, in Helsinki, and in Amsterdam. And that means that we have the possibility to create a little bit of a small European capital market, which there's an access for as well European investors, as well for European companies, impact companies, to find capital or to see have access to capital. And we had a merge like 3 years ago. So we merged with these three platforms. And before in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, we were like the OPC, which is the abbreviation of Oneplanetcrowd. And we decided that with the permit that was launched in 2021 for crowdfunding, the European crowdfunding regulation, that we thought, okay, we have the possibility to do it on a European scale. So let's do that. Let's make our impact grow. And as well, let's give companies as well as investors the possibility from different regions to invest in different companies from different regions. And what we see happening, and that is, I think, very promising and very interesting, is that as well, Dutch investors, they really like to invest in German companies, or German investors in Dutch companies, etc. Because, of course, that was a little bit an experiment, because it wasn't already there so much. So that is what we do. And I can, of course, elaborate a little bit of what it means and how it works. But I think the most important thing is that we really try to contribute to democratize like direct investments for investors who want to invest in impact companies, and to give impact companies access to capital. So that is what we do. And we definitely can talk a little bit more about it later, maybe short about myself. Indeed, I'm more from the traditional finance, and my previous job was CEO of a mortgage company. And what drives me or drove me at that point was that we were a very small company. We were in the Netherlands, founded in 2014, so just after the financial crisis. And a lot of Dutch banks, decided not to get into mortgages anymore because they were, of course, a little bit in shock after the financial crisis.
Right.
So what we did, we invented a business model where pension funds would directly invest in mortgages or residential mortgages. So it literally means that we sell the mortgages. We say to the pension funds, we need this amount of money. They transfer the money to an escrow account, and we transfer it to the consumer or the mortgage lender. So from that perspective, it was quite innovative, and it has some relationship with what I do now. But it was then when I started a very small company, and what I really like to do is, and with this, with my role here with Invesdor as well, is like really growing companies to the next level. So what happened is we had a really good moment to start with, of course, selling mortgages, because the interest rates went down and there was a lot of questions or a lot of demand for mortgages. And we made a really big step and growth. And I ended my working time there after 5 years, because at that point we were one of the fifth largest mortgage lender. And that is for me the time to leave, because then it was established, a lot of compliance came into place of all the things you wanted to do.
Right.
But maybe to explain a little bit what happened for myself and my next step is that at the end of my time at the mortgage company, it was that we were more focused on different ways of financing. So we were looking into making houses more sustainable, looking in different building methods. So, for example, bio-based housing, etc. And that was something which really triggered me that this is so much nicer. In the beginning, I was really busy with giving people or helping people with a house, which is also a very important thing.
Sure.
But then during our time, we thought we can do more. And that is, I think, what triggers me, that I thought, okay, me as a person also can do more. So after 5 years, I quit my job and I said to myself, I really need some time, because it was a very intensive time with the mortgage company. And then I thought, okay, what am I going to do? So I ran into a friend of mine, and she started a business angel network, and that was called Epic Angels. And she said, what you have to do if you are interested in maybe next step or getting out of the mortgage sector, you can dive into business financing, and especially with the startups and impact companies. And we are for especially looking for companies in Southeast Asia, because we think there are still a lot of improvement, a lot of possibilities, a lot of innovation, and way too little capital. So I joined that group, and it was it still is a women-only business angel group. And at this time, we are around, I think, 500 women all over the world who have joined this Epic Angel group. And because I was having a sabbatical, I had quite a lot of time to dive into the world of startups and how it works, and what different companies there are, and founders, etc. So that was a really interest road to discover this sector. And then via a friend of mine, still from the mortgage sector, so I have a nice network there, she introduced me with Invesdor, because they just had merged. And she said, okay, I do know from Epic Angels, so that you are interested in business financing. So maybe you can have a combination of your passion and your and work. So I joined it in 2024. So I'm almost 2 years here now, and it is my best choice ever, to say so. I
Mm,
think I always had very good choices, to be honest, or at least what I loved
mm.
in my career. I always followed what felt good or what felt good, and this was really a direct match made in heaven, to say so. Uh, and that has, of course, a lot to do with um, I love our ambition that we are cross border, that we are really with a team of different European countries, which, of course, is sometimes challenging with the different cultures. But we all have the same goal. We believe that we can make a large impact with our investors and with our companies. And you ask me, what is your big purpose? And what I noticed since I have been working here, because of course I had a lot to learn. And what I noticed is, we, or at least private investors, they have so much money here in the first world, in Europe.
Mhm.
And they, of course, for example, here in the Netherlands, you have on the saving accounts, we have over 600 billion euros
Mm.
standing and just laying there. And of course, these kind of investments are definitely not an alternative, because it is high risk.
Sure.
You can lose your money. So it's not an alternative, but I definitely think of that 600 billion, there's a lot of money who could be invested if people are more aware of the possibilities and how they can use their money wisely, which is much more closer to their values and to their goals, what they have. But it is still a little bit unknown, maybe a little bit exciting.
Mhm.
Um, so my big purpose is that we are well known in all of our countries, our home countries, and in Europe, that this can be something you can add on your different way of using your money. But here to invest not only for financial return, because we think always we have good companies which can offer a nice financial return, but
Mhm.
definitely invest in the future world, in a good future world, in a sustainable future world. And I think sometimes people think it's a little bit like ideologic, um, but I think it is the only future we have. Because if we don't invest in companies who help us into the transition, there's just one ending, and that
Mhm.
is not the nicest one in my
No.
perspective.
No.
So I think that is my big purpose, really making people aware of the possibilities to do something active in the transition, as well as helping those innovative entrepreneurs and do something wise with your savings, which always need to be addressed. The money you can miss, it should not
Mm.
be the money you need. It's only your extra money, to say so. And you always need to spread, because it is high risk investments.
I have a lot of questions, but just for clarifications,
Mhm.
you said, I wasn't sure if you were saying that Epic Angels was looking to invest in Southeast Asia or Invesdor, because I thought Investor only invests in Europe.
That's good. Just to clarify, it was Epic Angels. So
Okay,
Epic
okay.
Angels is really focusing on Southeast Asia, and Investor is only European. And to be exact, for this moment, still for the companies, we only look at headquarters companies in our home countries,
Which are?
which are the Netherlands, Germany, and Finland.
Just those three countries.
Yes, for now we have some trial and error with a French company, and we succeeded. But for our process and our legal due diligence and for the corporate law, it is very hard to try to interpret that with the risk level if you're not located there, or if you're not like a native speaker, or so therefore we now say, okay, it is those three countries, but we are still thinking we need to go broader into Europe.
So you're looking,
Expand.
is it a question of regulation?
Most of the time it is. Most
Okay.
of the time it is. We had, for example, with the French, we noticed that they tried to get a lot of French investors,
Yeah.
but it didn't work very well because we weren't a French platform, and therefore the French investors didn't get their tax reduction.
Okay, okay, okay. So you,
So
all right.
therefore there are so many still national rules, and regulation, that it makes it still hard to have companies from different EU countries.
But ultimately, you would like to be able to
Definitely,
raise money in Spain, I guess, because the economy there is doing quite well, or
definitely,
Italy, or Sweden, or Norway, or something like that. Okay,
definitely,
so
definitely.
what is the average ticket size? Not so much you said minimum 250
Yeah,
euro, what people can do, but they can
yeah,
do more, I guess. They can
yeah.
invest more if they want. Is there a cap, but they're not allowed to go above a certain amount?
No, no, they can. Of course, we have our KYC. So
Yeah.
we always, and AML. So we always need to check if there's a certain amount. I think it's above 25,000 that we definitely need to check
Okay.
where the money is coming from. But no, there's no limit on what they can invest. And of course, again, we feel very obligated, or we are obligated to inform the investors of risk. So if somebody said, oh, here you have 100K, we definitely have a call and say, okay, are you aware that this can only be around 10% of your total uh,
So
amount, so that is our duty. How do you say that? Duty of care, care of duty, duty of care. We need to
okay.
perform from the AFM.
And the minimum or maximum amount that you will invest or
Mm-hmm.
collect money to invest in a company, how much is that?
From a permit perspective, we can do a maximum of 5 million.
Okay.
And what we do see is that for bonds, we mostly are in the ticket size between 1 and 3 million, but
Okay.
it still can above that.
Mhm.
And we see in the equity financing, it's mostly between 800 and 800K and
Mhm.
1.5 million.
But you could go up to 5
Yeah,
million in equity?
yes, we can.
Okay.
We can.
When I spoke to you before, after I started researching crowdfunding, I was shocked at the success rate of raising
Mm-hmm.
money.
Mm-hmm.
It's, almost obscene how successful when you take on a client, because I mean, people raise money, but they're not always successful.
Yeah,
We also have failures. It just didn't fit.
yeah.
What is it with Investor on average
You mean our success rate we reach?
in raising money? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if I look at this year, we did around 45 projects, and I
Wow.
think two of them didn't reach the minimum. So
Wow.
it is important minimum. We always say, okay, this is the least you need to have for example, 12-month runway, because we say, okay, you need at least to stay or to be able to perform for at least a year. that is always our minimum. We say, okay, because otherwise it's strange to go to our investors and say within 3 months, hey, the company didn't make it. And they say, huh, how's that possible? So we have a minimum of 12-month runway. So from the 45, we had a 42 success rate.
That's
Yeah,
crazy high.
yeah. Yeah, I think there are a couple of reasons for that. First, of course, we have quite a strict selection. You know, we really look into companies who fits our profile, but most important, the investor's profile. So we always say, is it crowdable to say so?
Okay.
So that, yeah, that is a little bit a vague term. How do you say it? A terminology, because it has to do with, do people find it interesting from a business perspective? Do they find it interesting from an impact perspective? Do they find it from a duration perspective? That's always also very important. Do they find it interesting from a risk perspective? So there, of course, during our due diligence, we definitely dive in all those kind of criteria and look into the fact that we think, with our experience of already 14 years, if people like it or wouldn't like it, or that we think it is not an investment opportunity for private investors, because of course that's always a criteria. We think, is this a fit or not? And for example, we don't do very early companies. You know, there
Okay.
should already be a commercial traction. Why? Because we cannot lay that kind of risk on a private investor. You know, because they don't have like any interference, or they cannot be a part of any business decisions, like, for example, business angel or an VC. So from that perspective, we say, okay, it should be already in a little bit later phase of the company. And the same is, for example, with a bond, there should already be a positive EBITDA, because otherwise, you know, it's for private investors. They cannot, or they can maybe, but not all, is not a fit with a high risky, for example, venture debt proposition. So I think that is very important, that we really try to understand our investors and bring really the right company with this right capital, you know, or there's right investors who like to invest in these kind of companies. And therefore, we see that that is definitely one of our reasons that we are quite good at it after so many years, that it is a good fit. Of course, then still we need to work hard for it, because we need to do, of course, a lot of giving information, doing marketing, explaining what the company does, explaining what the risks are, explaining that if it's an equity financing, that you probably are there for 5 to 10 years, you know, not like promising exits within 5 years, because that's not a fair, in my opinion, message to our investors. So it is, I think, the combination of having the right investors, proposing or just matchmaking with the right company, and as well doing a hard working job on the marketing, and on also telling the fair story, you know, the real story.
So the vast, I would imagine, if you have a 95-96% success rate, the vast majority that apply don't make the cut. They don't
No.
meet. And do you have like an AI system to process applications to kind of reduce the burden on the organization having to speak to everybody? That the AI system will look at, okay, it meets certain requirements and this and that.
Yeah.
So you have a system to
No,
process it, though.
we don't have an AI yet. It is very interesting you mentioning because we are looking into that.
Yeah,
But at the moment, we have different channels. One is, of course, via our website.
sure.
They can apply. We will check and we will, sorry, have contact with them, asking extra questions, see if there's a fit. Of course, it can also be not a fit now, but
Yeah,
it can be within half a year, maybe 2 years. So it's also investing a lot of time and relation to find out what the right companies are for now, but also for the future. So that's one. And to be honest, the best companies, but also the best contact moments are most of the time during events of or network. And the reason for that is during certain events, you already know what kind of companies will be joining, or will be presenting.
right.
The same is with going through your network. You know what kind of people are working with certain companies, and therefore you can really make it clear what will be the fit and what will not be the fit. So, to be honest, I think the most valuable channel is at the end our network and our investment managers.
How many people work at Invesdor in the Netherlands, in the Benelux?
In the Netherlands, we are with 10.
Okay, so but you're
That's not that
probably
large,
no,
big.
no, but it means you're I don't know, you're probably getting 1,000 or more requests a year for investment opportunities, and you got to process all that. Because I was very impressed that your team or your
Mm-hmm.
organization or you, maybe it's just you,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
is very good at responding,
Mm-hmm.
which is not the case in most VCs or PE or family offices who, you have a nice conversation and then you have kind of 6 months of making out on the couch, no sex, and
Yeah,
then they
yeah,
ghost you and you never hear from them again. But
yeah.
I was quite impressed that you're very good at saying, I'm sorry, this is not for us for, this reason. You're very respectful to those founders, which is not easy when you've got probably a lot of people, coming to you looking for money.
Yeah, yeah. I think a couple of things. I always think, to be honest, also from a business perspective, it's always good to be respectful and to have a good relationship with all of the founders, because maybe it's not now, but maybe in future they will be
Right.
our a customer. So that is really our like um our rule, or not is a rule, it's a way we really believe in how to have contact with founders, with financial advisors, with people who are in the sector and thinking of us, about us, and are coming to apply at us, that we really think, okay, it's important to have a good relationship always, because you always meet again, that first. Second, I think it is very important for everybody to be clear, because nobody likes indeed what you're saying. You're every time talking and then again sending in numbers, and then there's another question, and then the next level needs to have their questionnaire and being answered, etc. It takes too many time, and maybe that is also because we are not that big. We also need to be efficient.
Mhm.
So it is a combination of efficient, but always with the rule, you want to be respected as you respect somebody else. It is the same way you want to be treated. That is so. From that perspective, I think we sometimes have the founders who come 2 or 3 years later, and then they are perfectly right for us as an
Mhm.
investment. So
And
I think it is also a long-term vision instead of making a shortcut or a too long, forever going on process.
You should give master classes to some of the VCs and PE firms because they don't share your social skills. It's uh, some are just really, awful. And it's not a
Yeah,
problem. Just say, I'm sorry, it's not for us,
exactly.
because that helps, the entrepreneur. Getting back to what you said about equity is a 5 to 10 year wait for
Yeah.
an exit. So how does that work? Because I noticed that some of the crowdfunding firms, they create like an SPV
Yeah.
where all of the crowd funders come into the SPV, so there's not like 300 shareholders coming to a meeting. Is that the same
Yes.
that you way you
Yeah.
do that? Yeah.
Yeah. What we have. So, firstly, what I indeed want to say about the 5 to 10 years, we most of the time, sorry, I have a little bit of a.
That's okay. No worries.
so, um, so we always have an anchor investor for the
Uh,
equity. That is for us very important. The reason is exactly what you are mentioning now is our investor group is in a stock. As you call it an SPV, it is a stock, as we call it here in the Netherlands, which means that they are certificate holders instead of direct shareholders, which means that they still have the economic rights, but they don't have the voting rights, which
okay. Okay.
means,
Okay.
and that is, I think, very interesting for an entrepreneur, it is that the voting right stays with the entrepreneur. So they don't lose that. So that is it. That is for them very interesting. And of course, for the certificate holders, what I was mentioning in the beginning, these are people mostly, they don't have the time to, for example, join every general meeting or whatever, that is not what their time or their investment is for. So this combination works very good. But we, of course, have within the stock, we have contracts which also protect the rights of the investor. So the drag-alongs and the tag-alongs, etc. So they are not have to control, for example, or check every time the entrepreneur. That is one thing. Second, how we indeed try to help the investor also to get their upside is that with an anchor investor, um, they most of the time do have direct shares, so they are direct shareholders. So that means they do have, for example, a seat in the board, or they have any other forms in which they have some influence in the business, which means they, of course, have interest with our investors that at the end there should be like an upside. Did it went well? Because I thought there was a short moment of
There was a
okay.
very minor
Okay.
break, but who determines the payout in the sense of, what is the return on investment for an equity or for debt? Who determines that? Is that the founder or is that investor?
Now, legally, it is the founder. So
Okay.
we are just there to make sure that it is, of course, is even equity is a little bit more difficult because we already have the anchor investor. So they determined, for example, the valuation,
Okay.
and therefore we can see, okay, it is a real or fair valuation. For example, with interest for the bonds, and we, of course, we are not allowed to set the interest rate,
Mm.
but we definitely will discuss with the entrepreneur, like, okay, this is the risk, so you cannot give them just 2% or whatever. Then we
Okay.
will not give you the opportunity to position yourself on our platform. Then we say, okay, this is not. So we are a little bit like the protector of the investor, that they have a fair deal.
Okay.
And by the way, the other way around, of course, as well, for the entrepreneurs, we also say, okay, if you want this, then you have to do that for the investor, but also they will make sure, for example, those investors are a lot of time your ambassadors, because they have an interest and they like your company. So that is some extra you always get with crowdfunding. You have your ambassadors all around
Right.
Netherlands or Europe.
And on average, I know that you have different, 45 a year. So on average, what would be the average interest for a bond? And what
Yeah.
would be the average return on investment for equity? I know there's some might be higher, some might be lower, but on average.
Yeah, on equity, it's still very hard to say because
Can
we
imagine.
still have not a lot of exits. We are only here when we started with equity. I think that was 5 years ago, or maybe
Okay.
shorter. So we don't have a lot of exits. But on the bond side, we are between 7 and 8%.
Okay. Okay.
So
And
that
the
is quite, yeah.
who finds the anchor? Is that the founder who comes to you says they have to find an anchor before you will take them on?
Most of the time, it works like that, because what we noticed is that they have, for example, they have already their shareholder who say, okay, I want to chip in for this round. They have most of the time a new one because they also want to have that. And we find that very important for the valuation. And then there's still a part of the round that isn't financed. So a lot of times we are top up financing. And therefore, in most cases, they already have an anchor. And sometimes they come to us and we say, okay, we need to have that anchor. So they're going to search for it. And sometimes it also or we help them to find one because we say, oh, wait, this is a good, for example, fund or VC or whatever, or family office or whatever, who can be interested in your company. So then we also do the introduction.
Okay, so it could be one or the other.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I'd like to address a particular case study where I was actually involved. So there was a Dutch company called Kipster, and
Mm-hmm.
we were engaged to try to raise money. And to my shock and horror, even though the company was doing fine and they knew it and they were
Definitely.
growing and they
Definitely.
had, all the eggs sold in advance for
Yeah, yeah,
7 to 10 years. And
yeah.
one of the biggest supermarket chains in the US contacts them. We want to do four more farms, and they already had 5 or 6 in
Yeah,
Europe. And their Lidl, which was the offtake
yeah,
supermarket, they wanted more. So I thought this should be easy.
yeah,
Everyone that claimed to be a food tech or
yeah.
ag tech, oh, hens, chickens, no, we don't want to do animals. Oh, manure for animals, and it's not sexy. There's no AI,
No
a
sexy.
whole list of reasons. And you took it on and you
Yeah,
raised the 4 million, which was
yeah,
they were raising in
yeah,
a very short time.
yeah,
So what was it that everybody said, oh, I thought it was a very simple idea.
yeah,
There was
definitely.
no, nuclear fusion at room temperature to figure out.
Yeah, definitely.
But it seemed to resonate with
Yeah,
crowdfunders.
I I think, but of course, I wasn't there when you were declined with different financiers. But a couple of things. We directly said this is very crowdable because they have a very nice way of presenting themselves.
Right.
They are very transparent. Every investor
Totally.
could visit the farm, and
Right.
they explain it fully. Ruud Sanders, the
Yeah.
founder,
Right.
is a very good presenter of
Yeah.
his vision, and
Absolutely.
he's really sticking to that vision in everything he does. And of course, we agreed with what you were saying already. Like the contracts with Lidl was perfect.
Yeah.
So what I think is maybe then the difference with impact investing on a platform we have is that people really believe in it and have, like, we call them fan investors. They are really enthusiastic about it. They like the founder, not because he is a very good businessman, but because he's so sticking to his vision.
Yeah.
And the circularity he uses for everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
That's
not
true.
only the food for the chicken, it's always the poo from the chicken is going into bread, for the bread, for growing the grain, etc. So he is, and I think that really goes well with our impact investing. The second thing, of course, our investors really want to have financial return.
Sure.
They are there. They're not like, I give you a donation.
Mm.
Um, but I think a lot of VCs or funds or whatever, they have certain targets they need to reach, like,
Yeah.
I need to have a return of at least 10 times or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of investors are in that way. So they think, firstly, I'm really helping um, the chicken sector, which is in the Netherlands crazy. We have
Yeah.
so many chicken,
Yeah.
really. So I was even brought up in a chicken village, so I'm
Oh.
really familiar with that. So we have so many, and of course, it is such a in a lot of times such a harsh sector, because every roaster is killed, and because they cannot be used, and the chickens are in very small, how do you say it, cages where they need to
Sure.
produce the eggs, etc. So it's so enlightening that you have an farmer who says, I'm really a chicken farmer, I really am, but sees the possibilities, which is that transition to a new world where you still have chicken, maybe
Mhm.
less than we had before,
Mhm.
but they can all be fed via waste.
Yeah.
They can, so, and I think that is what did really well. And even, and that was for us quite a shock on to tell you a small story about that. On the Monday, they went live, or on a
Yeah.
Tuesday or Monday. And it was the first day of bird flu since a year. And we were like, no, this is not happening,
Oh no.
Oh, so, but on the other hand, it makes his story much stronger. He said, we are with too many chickens. We should keep it smaller, keep
Right.
it in this way of using everything as well, from the feeding, as well for the breeding, as well for how he's keeping them, with
Mm.
the solar panels, etc. So I think, yeah, it's really an very famous and popular company here. So, and
Yeah,
I
it was.
don't think VCs, etc., they have a different, they're very important for the whole sector, for the ecosystem, etc., but they have a different view on the companies and the different expectations.
Mm. And a lot of people don't realize how much money you mentioned, 600 billion savings. There is globally 5 times more wealth than global GDP. So there's
Yeah,
€5 chasing €1. Okay, a lot is in real estate, but there's
yeah,
still
yeah,
a tremendous amount. So there, there is a more of a shortage of great ideas than
Mm-hmm.
there is money. There's plenty of money, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you get these ridiculous valuations.
Yeah.
However, we even though our main activity is still advisory and fundraising, I tell most founders don't raise money.
Mm-hmm.
Bootstrap as long as
Yeah, yeah,
possible. And I tell some of them, it's probably not for you to be an entrepreneur. It's just not for everyone. It doesn't mean
definitely.
that you're incompetent or anything. It's a question of resilience. Are you able to get knocked down a lot and get up again? Because it's really
Definitely.
about that.
Yeah,
It's really about that.
I
Do
really,
you have
sorry,
those conversations with founders?
definitely, definitely. I mean, of course, we also have companies who struggle, who have a lot of difficulties. And then you see that sometimes it is the market, sometimes it is geopoliticians,
Yeah,
politics, sometimes it is, the business model didn't work out as they were thought it would be. So it can also always be happening. But again, I totally agree with you, being a founder or an entrepreneur is hard work from
yeah,
all sides. It's exactly what you say. It has a lot to do with being resilient, with really liking to get up every day, and not like from 9 to 5, but from 9 to 9. So, and in weekends
yeah,
and during nights sometimes,
yeah.
it is,
Sure.
you need to give up quite some things. And of course, it gives you back also a lot, because we see the success stories that are so inspiring, that you think, yeah, this is what we need in the world, and this is what works well. But also, we also see founders who cannot handle it at the moment. And you indeed said it has nothing to do, but that it has to do with you as a person.
Yeah,
But is it a fit? I mean, not
yeah.
everybody can be a doctor. I definitely could
No.
be, so couldn't be. So yes, that should also, is it a fit? Yes or no? And I think that is something, maybe sometimes the most difficult uh, moments when an entrepreneur or a founder needs to find out if he is or she is still the right person on the right spot,
Mhm.
because it can also sometimes be you did the first steps or the first years or the first phase, and then it's better that an other person with different skills, with different vision, with different experience step in, maybe take over, maybe help you, whatever. And that is sometimes, and I can understand it very good, or I can relate to it, but it is, I think most of the time the strongest founders are able to also take a step aside when needed.
Mhm. You have a very high success rate
Mm-hmm.
for raising money.
Mm-hmm.
Why is the perception of crowdfunding still kind of not in a, let's say, in the maximum professionality as it is? People look at VCs or P, oh, that's
Yeah.
serious. And crowdfunding, it's a
Yeah.
spielerij.
I think it is changing, because if I look here in the Netherlands, I'm also a board member of the Association for Crowdfunding.
Okay.
And we do some calculations, and we see that over 2.5 billion at the moment goes into crowdfunding, via
In
crowdfunding
in the
finance
Netherlands.
in the Netherlands, only in the
Wow.
Netherlands. We're not that big, but
Congratulations.
exactly. So you see that steadily we are growing, and we are more professional, because we are also licensed now.
Right.
So that helps a lot. So step by step, we are definitely, especially for companies, we are a very good alternative, for example, for the banks or for other alternative financiers. What I do think, we have, of course, a very short legacy. I mean, we only exist for 10, 12 years, as crowdfunding, or 14 years, something like that.
Mm.
So just after the financial crisis. And a lot of um, campaigns were only donations.
Mm,
You own, or a peer to peer.
yeah.
There's somebody, his house burned down, and people help him with donating or with crowdfunding, and then you always get it on the news and whatever. So via a crowdfunding campaign, the person has been helped, which is nice, but which it makes it sometimes very difficult to explain what we really can offer on a much more professional and investment slash financing way. And I see that is really changing, definitely in the Netherlands, but also in Europe. Um, but it takes time.
Can you say how many crowdfunding members you have in Europe within Investor?
Ooh, you mean as different platforms?
No, 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 just
Oh,
for
sorry.
Investor.
Oh,
Just
sorry.
Invest.
I was
No,
like,
no,
well.
just Investor.
And you mean like investors? How many
Yeah,
investors
yeah.
we have?
How many in Finland, Germany,
Yeah,
the Netherlands
yeah.
total?
So we have a total of
Wow.
200K, 200,000. But I directly must be very honest and transparent. We have over 80,000 who has really been investing.
They've been
So, because
active.
there are always people who just do it one time, look at it, and think we don't go and invest, or I don't have the money, or whatever. So, but again, it is still exposure. We still hope, of course, that we can find the right investment opportunity for the sleeping, sleeping ones. So that is still, but yeah, it is a lot, and it grows every year. It grows
Well, I
every
mean,
year. Yeah.
I wouldn't apologize for the non-active because there's
Mhm.
lots of networks of so-called impact investors, but
Yeah.
most of them are run like high school dances.
Mm.
Meaning, I don't know if you remember when you were younger, you go to a high school dance, and on one side were the boys, and the other side were the
Yeah,
girls,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and nobody moved.
yeah.
And that's how a lot of these networks operate. They will only invest if one of the members invests, but then
Yeah.
one of the members is not investing because they're waiting for the other
The
members
other,
to invest.
exactly.
So the fact that you have 80,000 active investors and you're able to raise 95, 96%
Yeah.
success rate, there's nothing to apologize. My son works
Mhm.
at a craft beer company in Amsterdam called Two Chefs.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
So
Oh,
he's
nice. Yeah.
marketing, and he told me that a lot of the money they raised was through their own crowdfunding on their
Oh, yeah,
own
yeah, yeah. That's
platform.
also possible. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Um, so I started to direct people who come to us more to crowdfunding. But I have a very brilliant client it's not in Europe, in Southeast Asia, who has developed a technology to stop all the rice field burnings. And he said to
Yeah.
me, you know why
Yeah.
the farmers burn the rice fields? I said, I don't know. Do they like fire? He said, no, no, no. They burn the rice fields because they're poor. And
Yeah,
to take away the rice and the biomass, they have to rent a tractor, pay somebody, etc.
yeah,
So
yeah,
he
yeah, yeah, yeah.
said, I'll take away the biomass. He rents a tractor, he gives the rice back to the farmer, and he takes the biomass and converts it to a single-use plastic replacement. So
Oh,
a food
nice.
container.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
Thailand, they use 50 million every day because
Wow.
people do takeaway.
Yeah.
And he raised money, and they were looking at crowdfunding. But one of their investors, no, 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 it's not
Yeah.
professional and that. So there's still a perception by
Definitely.
some investors or informal investors. Do the banks help you in saying, hey, we have somebody here, we can't really do anything with it. Maybe it's something for you? Do they direct people your way?
I think banks are really a tough cookie in that perspective, to be honest,
Uh,
because, for example, Rabobank here in the Netherlands, they learned that it is very interesting to get in early stage companies because at the end they are interesting clients for you. So there
sure.
are in certain phases they are already there, or they just say, just wait a moment and then you are able to come to us. What we do see besides the banks, so more the alternative financing parties, we definitely see that they direct more and more towards different crowdfunding platforms
Oh,
if
okay,
there's a
good.
fit. So you do see it. We definitely, but we had it like, well, this year we had a medtech company, Billy Home, which had
Mm.
a German shareholders, and they were also in the beginning, no way, no way. Okay. And then they said, but listen, we believe in it. So we want to do it. If it doesn't work out, you can blame us, of course, then still the shareholder needs to say, okay. But he was so impressed. He even invited us in Germany to get acquaintance. And he said, yeah, be aware because I do have more companies, which I now would love you to meet.
Oh, good.
Um, so it is, people need to have an experience with it,
Mm.
um, and has the with I think everything you do and it's unknown to you, you
Mm.
first need to have the experience and to have a success with it, and then you think, maybe this is interesting. And I think we're still in the way of in the route to get more believers, in
Mm.
us. So sometimes we feel just a little bit like a church, just to get people in. Uh,
Yeah,
but I think it is partly because we're that young. I mean, banks are here forever, so everybody believes in them, and nobody could have ever expected, like the financial crisis in 2008,
no,
that there
that's true.
would be go a bank bankrupt, or whatever. But and still now, if I look in the Netherlands, still a lot of people directly have full belief again in the banks, and what they do with investments and whatever. Although they don't have very much transparency if it
No,
goes for different fund they offer or whatever. And here you see everything. You can just look up the company, you can uh, talk with them, you can call them, etc. It's so transparent. So as well from an investor perspective, as well from um, an other financial.
hmm, it's okay. We froze there. We'll fix that. Oh, okay.
Or impact.
Yeah. One final question. How can those who are going to be listening to this podcast or the webinar, how can they help you?
I think they can join us on our way to expose ourselves and present and invite, and how do you say that, make us more well known, whether they are investors or whether they are companies, just to contact us and if you have good experience, just tell people, because I think
Mm,
that is what we still need in a crowdfunding impact investing platform, what we are. And I think our reach is growing every day, but still to make impact as well from the company side, as well from the investor side, we still need to have our own ambassadors.
yeah, yeah. This has been a joy. Thank you so much for, first of all, being very open and transparent about all the elements of crowdfunding. I really appreciate that. And
Thank
also
you.
for making the time. I'm going to stop the recording now.